Hello, good morning. Welcome to this carrier update brought to you by Powerfleet. I'm here with Zach Strickland, and I think, Zach, is this a chart of Netflix?
Netflix, yeah. They had to raise their subscription prices, and that didn't work out too well. So that's what we're watching, their stock price plummet. No, that is our tender rejection index, Anthony Smith, although, yes, it does look a lot like a Netflix stock chart at this point because we continue to drop. We dropped another 13 basis points yesterday. Not a lot. It's not like you're going to notice a huge difference today versus yesterday in the freight market. But we did kind of we've slowed our progress in terms of dropping that tender rejection rate day over day. I mean, it's Easter week, so we're going to have a little bit of intermittent disruption, but it doesn't appear like it's going to be dramatic. We're looking at volumes, though. Volumes are dipping a little bit stronger than anticipated. Again, seeing as we're in this transitional state, it's hard to kind of pick out seasonal fluctuations and movements. Normally Easter we see this trough, but tender volumes were already dropping. So you would think that it's going to exacerbate that decline, but we may not see that same amount of kind of plateauing or leveling out at a floor for the next few days, as it looks like the tender volumes are just falling off a cliff at this point. So it is a little unnerving if you're a carrier out there to see the tender volumes drop to this level. And again, as tender rejection rates aren't falling as quickly anymore, that means that there is absolute volume dropping. Spot rates obviously dropping, et cetera. So this is a difficult transition period for our carriers out there, especially if you're a smaller operator. Difficult to kind of play the spot market game anymore. The transactional volumes are falling down because the contract volumes freeing up a lot of those carriers, those enterprise carriers who have those large fleets. They got to get that network under control. So they're going to go and grab up just about everything they can at this point. So, that's what we're seeing right now. And it's April. April is typically a month that we don't see any kind of seasonal increases. It's very soft in general. Like coming out of March, it's the first month of a quarter. A lot of spring breaks. Like we said, we have Easter. Also, a lot of vacations going on this time of the year. So it's not a month that we expect to see any kind of change in pattern here. So I would expect these volumes to continue to fall. And the fact that we're talking about 12K on the OTVI, we've been averaging up to 15, 16K for the majority from January all the way back into 2020, late 2020. We were at 15,000 on the OTVI. So this is a dramatic change in the freight market. Now, a lot of that having to do with the rejected tenders coming down significantly, all the way from, we averaged over 20% the entire year last year. Now we're at 10.53%. So 1 out of every 10 loads is getting rejected versus 1 out of every 4. That's a big change in the market.
So, Zach, when we're looking at this, one of the things that you mentioned was that this is definitely a transitionary period. One of the things that happens, I know when back in my consulting days during transitionary periods, there were actions to be taken from different companies. When we're looking at smaller carriers and larger carriers, are there particular actions that they should be taking during this time frame?
It's almost too late. It's almost too late. If you were thinking that this was going to last forever, I feel bad for you. I don't. 1 out of every 4 loads being rejected is not sustainable. The market, the demand side indicators were just not where you couldn't keep it there. So really, a lot of the action should have been occurring before this. Now, that's difficult to do because you don't know the timing, you don't know the length, how long the cycle is going to last, et cetera. I mean, history has not been a good predictor of things at this point. But there are some things you could probably do. Obviously, making sure your service is good. I mean, deepening those relationships now. I mean, there's, as strange as it may sound, there may be some people out there that just haven't accepted that this is a transitional state for the freight market. So stay on it. Get out there, make sure you've got your service locked down, lock in those contracts while you can, and make sure you're doing all the little things right at this point because you don't have as much leverage as you once had before. Let's look at the next chart here. And one of the things that's happened is we've lost a sense of urgency in the freight market. And this is the intermodal container volume chart. We talked about this previously. If you've heard Tony on the spot talk about it, we've got intermodal volumes right here. In the blue line, they're maintaining. And that's because service isn't as necessary as it once was. We don't have a lot of those fulfillment orders needing to have that freight get there as quickly as it was. The inventories have built up. We talked about it with Zach Rogers. So intermodal, slower. It's also upstream storage, and it's a lot cheaper than that dry van contract freight, and especially on the spot market still at this point. That may change in the future, but intermodal volumes are down, so there's still room to grow here if shippers wanted to keep shipping stuff on the intermodal side.
Yeah, I think that's a great point there, lost in that sense of urgency. Zach, thanks so much for this first carrier update. We'll check with you throughout the morning. Right now, we're going to toss it back over to Kaylee Nix.